Great things are happening out there around the world, and for once, they aren't all bad news. At the G20 International Summit in Bali, the US President Joe Biden's been talking to his Chinese counterpart Xi about getting help in ending the murderous war in Ukraine. Could it work? Here's the British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly talking to LBC earlier today.
We know that China has a huge influence on the world stage, and President Xi had a bilateral meeting with President Putin just before the invasion. We know President Putin will listen to what the Chinese say.
Fingers crossed. But in terms of hoping for a safer and more stable world, nothing is more important than better relations between the Americans and the Chinese. Meanwhile, in Ukraine itself, President Zelensky has been able to visit the southern city of Kherson, which his army recaptured when the Russians scarpered back across the river. We are ready for peace, he said, peace for all our country. That doesn't mean that a deal is coming or that it's close, but all of the above, the Ukrainian flag in Kherson, talk of peace, and the possible involvement of China is good news in a shaky world. So, in a much smaller and more local way is the deal signed today between Britain and France to curb the passage of dinghies carrying migrants across the Channel. London will pay Paris about an extra £8 million or so for more French patrols. That, of course, won't stop the problem. As the Home Secretary Suella Braverman said, there are no quick fixes, but it certainly isn't bad news. Shortly, I'm going to be talking to the former head of the Foreign Office, Lord Simon MacDonald, about those stories, but also about a little local difficulty here at Westminster. A question, perhaps, of the Prime Minister's judgment, not on numbers, but about people. After the departure of Gavin Williamson following bullying accusations, the Deputy Prime Minister himself, Dominic Raab, is under fire for the same thing. There were reports this morning of a whole clutch of senior diplomats complaining about his behaviour as Foreign Secretary.